everyone, to Couch Potato Diary, this AEW recap show. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today, this one is very simple. We're just going to be looking at the wildness that was AEW Double or Nothing, recapping the entire show, which is a lot. So, let's get into it. All right, I had to watch this in two sittings, A, based on stuff that was going on here, and B, based on the fact that it was like 5 freaking hours long. Just the main pay-per-view itself was 4.5 hours. So frustrating for sure. But let's get into it. I did not watch the pre-show. Deonna Purrazzo beats Thunder Rosa, congratulations, and the Acclaimed beat the Cage of Agony, which is the new group formed out of the Mogul Embassy. So we begin with Will Ospreay taking on Roderick Strong, singles match for the AEW International Championship. Roderick Strong, the defending champion, loses in 17 minutes and 40 seconds to Will Ospreay. This was really good. There was a terrifying spot where Will fell, and it looked really, really bad. Once again, we continue to tell the story that Ospreay doesn't want to use the Tiger Driver 91, and there's a little bit of conflict there. The pairing with Don Callis makes no sense to me at all. If it's building to something greater, they're doing it, I think, way too slowly. It has never really been a fit. Like, Ospreay has come in and been a babyface the whole time, and Don Callis has just kind of been there, but hasn't really been heelish enough to make it be like it just. If they're trying to be subtle about it, it's almost being too subtle. Like, it's just like, oh, that's weird. And it's a weird fit. So I don't like it. Roderick Strong, there was some interference, and I just want to go through. Because there are a few critiques with the show here today. This match had interference, which makes it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 matches on the 10-fight main card that had some form of interference. And one of them couldn't because it was the anarchy in the arena, and so any other outside interference would be insane when someone has a flamethrower. So there's that. Even the steel cage match had some outside interference. And look, like, Don Callis got involved in the Moxley Takeshita one, so I guess I'll count that as well. So that's 8. Like, it's just, it just became so, okay, well, here's going to be the interference now, and on it goes that way. And I guess while I'm ranting about things that could have changed, because the other day, quite frankly, for King of the Ring, I wanted to say some thoughts for the end, and then I was just like, okay, I'm done, and forgot to do it. So I'll just go while I'm going here. The show is too long. Like, it's 4.5 hours, and that was one of the critiques for WWE for a long time, is that, like, does everyone need to be on this show? Like, what are we doing here? But now WWE just did King of the Ring. It was 5 matches. It was great. Breezed through it. Felt easy. Every match felt important. It was great. And now you're coming out of this, like, I was listening to a recap after I literally just watched this show, and they were talking about Orange Cassidy and Trent Berreta, and I'll do my best to recap it here. That has just gone from my brain. It is so tough to remember everything on these. You look at this show tonight, 10 matches. If you wanted to cut it down and just load up Dynamite, like, let's really get this thing going. You could have put the Bang Bang Gang against Death Triangle on there. You could have put, honestly, you could have put Moxley against Takeshita on there. Chris Jericho, Hook, and Shibata on to Dynamite. Make this a 7-match main card, 3.5 hours, still too long, but fine. And now you have a Dynamite that looks loaded coming off of a pay-per-view, and you're going to have the added intrigue of all of these other things. And so I do really think they need to go kind of the old NXT route, where the NXT leading into the pay-per-view is going to be stacked, and the NXT coming out of the pay-per-view is going to be stacked with a bunch of matches that we just couldn't fit on this show, but we're going to keep the pay-per-view or the premium live event. We're going to keep that special, and AEW just didn't do that here. Look, like, I still, overall, this is still a thumbs up show for me, but there's just so much, sorry for the snap noise, there's a cat on the desk here. It's just so frustrating to see all of these different things that just keep happening with AEW, and it's exhausting. It really is exhausting to try to follow all of this along when I feel like there are easier ways that this could be done. Once again, 3rd show in a row. Say hi, Shiloh. Hi, Shiloh. But either way, that this was a really good match. And then big moment comes after this, where Adam Cole comes out, and he's cutting a promo, and MJF returns, and he was shot out of a cannon. And honestly, I think this is a shot in the arm that AEW kind of needs right now. I like lack of star power isn't an issue, but MJF has always been so good at making people care about what he is doing and getting people invested in him. And so I do think that will really help and bring another level of importance, I think, to this program. The Bang Bang Gang defeat Death Triangle to retain the Unified World Trios Championship. I wish it would have gone to Death Triangle. I am so over it with the Bang Bang Gang, even with Juice Robinson coming back, which I loved. I love Juice Robinson, but this group is just done for me. So I was a little bummed out that it continues, quite frankly. Next, it's Timeless Toni Storm with a win over Serena Deeb. This one goes 15 minutes exactly. The crowd was behind Timeless Toni Storm, but I think that they were starting to get like this was already an hour into the show, and you're just starting to do the math like, okay, well, we still have a barbed wire steel cage match and 3 main events that were being hyped. I felt like this was where they started to lose the crowd a little bit. And I think part of it is they were a little ambiguous as to who was the babyface and who was the heel in this whole thing going in. I think they are swimming upstream with Toni Storm being a heel character. You had a bit of the drama there with Luther and Mariah May Mariah May wants to throw in the towel. Luther doesn't want to throw in the towel. And there's a bit of a back and forth there. And what's it going to be? And Toni Storm ends up coming out of it. But I don't feel like they've done enough to build up Serena Deeb as a challenger. And I like that Purrazzo against Thunder Rosa was on the main card here was on the prelim card, because you're just at least building something else up. But there's no follow-up to anything. And it looks like we're going to get another angle in the women's division out of Willow Nightengale and Chris Statlander. But there just has not been enough to build up a title challenger. Like, who's next for Toni Storm now? I don't know. Is it Mercedes Mone and we're going to unify the titles? Like, what are we doing here? So that's something. And then that kind of thing. And maybe this was just at the point where this has been a long show and I'm just angry about everything. And it came across as a little like the 3 eyes or whatever it was with Kurt Angle. Like, it was being so over the top, like, gosh golly gee, that maybe it was supposed to be a heel thing. But the audacity of running a breaking barriers thing with Mercedes Mone, who absolutely has done that, yes, 100%. But the audacity of doing that on a 5-hour show where, what is it here, 10:15, 15 minutes and 18 minutes. So what's that? 33. So 45 minutes of a 5.5 hour broadcast is dedicated to the women's matches. But we're going to run a thing with Rosa Parks and Billie Jean King and Serena Williams talking about inspirational women stuff. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you're not doing that. You're not following along with this. Like, Mercedes Mone has certainly broken through a number of different barriers in her career and in her life. And this isn't a knock on any of the performers. This is a knock on the promotion who's trying to play up this thing while literally doing the thing that they're saying all these people are fighting against. It's bullshit to me. So now I'm just rambling. Orange Cassidy against Trent Berreta, that certainly was a match that happened. Orange Cassidy is fun. This story is interesting. But again, like, it doesn't need the Don Callis stuff. And look, I think Don Callis is excellent. I think when he was going, he was the best heel manager in wrestling. And I actually really enjoyed his podcast with Lance Storm, and I thought it was an interesting perspective on the wrestling business. But I think that with Don Callis, like, he does a lot really well, but I think they know that, and so they're just like, yeah, fuck it, go with the Orange Cassidy Trent Berreta thing. Why? I don't know. It doesn't make a lick of sense that he's going after baby faces in this either. It just, I don't get it. I don't get it. And maybe it's this magical story thing that's just above me, but I don't get it. I don't like it. It seems pointless. And I think if you kept him with just Takeshita and a couple of other guys, I think it works really, really well. But we're spreading him out all over the show, and it kind of loses its impact. Chris Jericho defeats Hook and Katsuyori Shibata at 12:40. This was a really blah match. And when you have, again, Anarchy in the arena, and you have the barbed wire steel cage match, You don't need this match on here. This should have been Dynamite. This meeting could have been an email. That this one needed to be on something not on this show. And like the Jericho character, I understand like Jericho's importance to AEW, and if you want to scratch and claw to get him on the 5th anniversary show, fine. Then have him cut a promo on Hook getting ready for Wednesday's Dynamite. Because this wasn't a pay-per-view quality match. And I love Shibata. I'm interested in the Hook character, although, again, the more we're seeing it, the more it does seem like this is a performer that needs some work. And this is the problem with AEW, is that there is no developmental. There is no performance center or anything like that. It's guys going out there once or twice a week and wrestling, and he needs more than that right now. He just does. And so this was frustrating. It feels like, honestly, it feels like I'm being very negative on this show. I actually did really enjoy this, but it's just, it is honestly reminding me a lot of the WWE shows that AEW was kind of brought out of, was kind of created to go up against. It was WWE shows that were too long, that the storylines you didn't really love, but then once you got down to the pay-per-view, okay, well, the matches are really good. But if you went through any of it with a fine-tooth comb and all, it's like, oh, this actually doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. That's kind of what this is right now. All of these matches on there, if you just went onto YouTube a year and a half from now and watched Will Ospreay against Roderick Strong, great match. Toni Storm against Serena Deeb, fine programming. If you just want to put 15 minutes on and enjoy some classic wrestling, then you will be thoroughly entertained by this. But in terms of trying to stop some downward momentum for a company that it seemed would be impervious to that sort of a thing, this is not it. And it really is frustrating. John Moxley defeats Kensuke Takeshita. There's no way I said his first name right. At 17:20. So Moxley will not have to face Takeshita for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. The one thing this did accomplish is it made Takeshita look like a goddamn badass. Because they have put so much equity into the John Moxley character that when it takes him a bit to beat guys, then you take notice. It took him a bit to beat Takeshita, and I thought Takeshita looked like an absolute badass this entire match. I have said before that he just feels like a star. This felt like a star performance. I was so impressed with Takeshita. It was a bit of a different style, which this show was begging for, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Takeshita, like, if he wins the casino gauntlet thingy-mabob on Wednesday and is the number one contender for the AEW championship, fine by me. This guy should be a main eventer in this company or in any company. And then we get to the barbed wire steel cage match where Adam Copeland defeats Malakai Black by referee stoppage, I guess, at 2020. Adam Copeland, with the entrance and everything, he plays this up so well. And it was a bummer that the Judgment Day thing turned into what it turned into. Although, I think you look back on it, Judgment Day's a success, right? Like, Rhea Ripley feels like a bigger star coming out of it. So does Damian Priest, and I would suggest Dominic Mysterio as well. So you have 3 new stars coming out of this, so bravo. But the Edge involvement, that wasn't the Edge that WWE fans wanted. But now that you bring him out with a fresh coat of paint, and it's in AEW, you can maybe do a little bit more of this. Like, I thought this felt like a total badass character. I loved this. And then this match, it was brutal. I thought the build-up to it was excellent, and I thought they kind of followed through on it. I thought the quick double turn thing with Buddy Matthews and with Brody King was excellent. I understand where they were getting to, A, with that, B, with Gangrel. Who comes into this match, which is an amazing sentence to say in the year of our wrestling gods, 2024. But the point of the steel cage is to keep him in the cage, and then they go out of the cage because the thing just boots off. That felt a little annoying to me. But then where it looks like Matthews and King have joined up for this Judgment Day-esque thing with Edge, and then they're like, actually, go fuck yourself. And they drill him with the clothesline. I thought that was so good. And then Gangrel comes out, and it's perfect. You have some of the wild spots with Edge and Malakai Black. This was exactly what it needed to be. And then you get the singles match for the AEW TBS Championship as Mercedes Mone defeats Willow Nightengale at exactly 18 minutes to become the champion. First, Mercedes Mone, this was a performance that I think she needed. But still, this was a crowd that was not behind her. And she's in a frustrating spot because she plays a heel so very well. but I find her incredibly likable and relatable. Like she's coming out there and she's almost crying. And remember, she has the main event or the match with Bianca Belair and almost crying in that spot, actually crying in that spot. Like you can see she just loves this and it transfers through. And it doesn't matter what offers she'll get with Mandalorian or anything like that. Wrestling is always going to be the thing for her. And she appreciates these moments. And maybe I'm sure the others do as well. But she wears it how much all of these things mean to her. And so that's an easy character to get behind. It's just the rest of it screams heel to me. I thought there might have been another level that this match could have gotten to, but I thought this was a good showing. I was listening to Eric Bischoff talking about it, and he was saying Willow Nightengale isn't ready for this level. I disagreed. I thought Willow Nightengale put on a great performance. She is a character that obviously everyone is behind now, and when she eventually wins the Women's World Championship, that is going to be a landmark moment for this company. So I think they have a superstar on their hands with Willow Nightengale. And I think, honestly, getting Mercedes back in the ring is getting this character back on track. Post-match, you get Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander turning on Willow Nightengale. And I thought Taz did a good job. It was a touch WWE over-explainy of being like, well, there was a spot in the match where where Hathaway and Statlander were distracting the referee. They thought they were, Statlander got shoved by Mercedes Mone, so she was getting up there, and then Hathaway, it seemed at the time, was just frustrated by the situation and wanted to defend his client or whatever, and it ended up potentially costing Willow Nightengale, who had a roll-up pin at the time. And then after, Taz is like, well, maybe this explains that. And it's like, you know what? That is an excellent putting two and two together. They didn't have to go 20 sentences on, oh my God, remember at this point in the match, maybe it was just like, well, that explains that. I thought that was well done. And now Statlander against Nightengale, I think is going to be an excellent feud. Stokely Hathaway being back in somewhat of a prominent form in his regular type of a character, I think is important as well. And so I think this was a win all around, quite frankly. Then we get to the world title match. Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana defeats Christian Cage at 24-50 to retain the AEW World Championship. This was a really good match. You had a lot of the Gaga with the patriarchy out there with Killswitch, Nick Wayne, and Mother Wayne, but when it got down to just these two wrestling, I thought they put on a really good match, and I thought Swerve going through at the end and really wanting to literally and figuratively put his stomp on this match was really fun, and I thought kind of was a nice ending to it. The one thing I will say, and maybe this is another thing about the why the fuck are there 12 matches on this show thing, some of these can be dragged out now beyond one pay-per-view. I know AEW, before, when you're only running 4 or 5 pay-per-views, having a feud that stretches out over multiple pay-per-views seems fucking insane. But now that you're running one every month, and this month is a little bit different with Forbidden Door coming up, but there's nothing to say you can't have an all AEW match on there. But you can drag some of these out now, right? Like, and this one probably isn't the one, although Christian was doing some amazing work, but like, it felt like Malakai Black, Adam Copeland, we kind of drug it out a little bit because we had the 6-person tag in at the last pay-per-view, Revolution, but it felt like this one maybe we could, or sorry, Dynasty. It felt like this one maybe we could have extended a little bit more, although the end tonight I thought was satisfactory. So I feel like instead of loading up like, hey, we got 4 hardcore matches on this, like, you know what, let's do 2, then we can do 2 in the next one, and we can kind of extend things a little bit. So this is That's part of the AEW thing I'm not going to overly critique right now, because it is still something they're new at, where like the monthly pay-per-view thing is still pretty new to them. But Swerve came out of this feeling like a superstar again. He's just awesome. And then we get to Anarchy in the Arena, and this was wild. To recap, for those of you who didn't watch, which if you're watching this and you didn't watch, thank you. But you have some of the craziest things I've ever seen. They lit a guy on fire. Let's just put that out there. They lit a guy on fire with a torch, Jack Perry. And then he won. They had, we saw before, they've had the shoes with the thumbtacks on them. We haven't seen a mask really with them on it yet, as far as I can remember. And then we get a sleeve with the thumbtacks for the Rainmaker spot. Someone got run over by a car, we're presuming. That one I thought could have been a little bit different. a little bit better executed, because they drive into this pile of stuff. And it does feel like, okay, Darby Allin is supposed to be in there, and he's getting hit by his second bus in a month, which is really bad luck. And then you have Jack Perry kind of slouched over. And I understand, like, when you get into a high-impact collision, I got head trauma or brain trauma is what they called it, from a car crash, and I didn't hit anything nearly as hard or whatever. But it did feel like there was a brief moment where, wait, did Darby, like, put a cinder block on the gas pedal and just shoot this guy into the thing? Like, I thought they needed to explain it a little bit more. Like, instead of, oh my gosh, what happened? Just go like, oh wow, Jack Perry is obviously out from the impact of the collision, because it felt for a second like, okay, who was responsible for that? And then Darby came out first, which was interesting. So all of that, I thought, it's a weird thing to say. The bus crash angle probably could have been a little bit tighter before we got to the flamethrower thing, and then the dude hanging upside down part. That could have been a little bit tighter. But overall, like, this was the madness that it needed to be off the start. Starting with the final countdown while everyone was wrestling was a really cool touch. I thought that it kind of took Toni and Taz and Excalibur out of what was supposed to be the seriousness of the match. But I do think that they got back in it again once a human being was lit on fire on pay-per-view. And then you get Darby Allin hung upside down. They did a good job of talking about, like, this guy broke his ankle. That's why he's not climbing Mount Everest right now, which, again, what a sentence. And so explaining, like, him getting hung upside down, and then the super kicks on Darby. It's weird to critique a match like this and saying, well, there wasn't enough blood. I thought at that point, at that exact moment, I was like, man, there should be, like, blood dripping off of him onto the canvas. And then when you realize he was hanging upside down for like 5 minutes after, it's like, yeah, you probably need all the blood in you that you can keep at this point, given what's going on, with the crowd chanting, please help Darby at points, which is an interesting way of getting a babyface over and some sympathy, I suppose. And then in the end, Jack Perry ends up getting the win. This was crazy in the best, and you know what, like, I'm not even, I don't know if I would show this at a party, but if I got some buddies around and we're just drinking, I'm probably throwing this match on, because this was insanity. And it's the type of thing that AEW does, and I think they do really, really well. Coming out of this one, the Elite are about the same. I think Jack Perry maybe moves up another notch. Darby Allin, I was thinking, like, when his music hit and everyone goes nuts, I don't know how you put the championship on him at some point, but he needs to be more involved in main event storylines going forward. And, like, he just had the thing with Sting, so it's not like he's been just, like, pushed down the main card or pushed down to the mid card or whatever. Like, he has been, I think, relatively appropriately utilized, but there is another level that guy can get to. So that was the insanity that was AEW Double or Nothing. As far as the rest of the schedule goes for today, I'm going to be on Sportsnet 960 The Fan in like 2 hours. So I have to go. So we're not going to get a regular Couch Potato Diary today. Coming up tomorrow, there's going to be a lot more wrestling talk, recapping Monday Night Raw, plus who won the weekend, Raw or AEW, and we have a lot of UFC talk coming up as well. Plus, it's NHL and NBA playoffs. So tons to get to. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. If you're listening in podcast form, make sure you subscribe and leave a review, and I'll talk to all of you later. I'm out.